My life has always been a bit peculiar. Things happen around me that defy explanation. Objects move on their own. Shadows dance in the corner of my eye. Whispers seem to follow me from room to room. I've grown accustomed to these unsettling events. However, one night, the unexplainable manifested itself in a way I could never have imagined. It was a cold November night when I was 16. My parents were out of town, leaving me with my older brother Mark and my best friend Sarah for company. We weren't worried. Mark was a reassuring presence, always level-headed. We thought it would be a typical night of movies, popcorn, and teenage banter. We were so wrong. The storm raged outside, wind howling like a banshee, rain lashing against the windows. We huddled together on the living room floor, engrossed in a horror movie. It was all fun and games, the thrill of fictional fear washing over us, until the real terror began. It began subtly, a creak on the stairs, the rustle of leaves against a window. We dismissed it all, attributing the noises to the storm's fury. But as the night wore on, the noises grew bolder, more insistent. We paused the movie, our laughter dying in our throats. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. A prickling sensation crawled across my skin. Something was wrong. I scanned the room, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah, her eyes wide with fear, mirrored my apprehension. We were alone in the house, or so we thought. "Mark, did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He nodded, his gaze fixed on the hallway leading to the front door. We listened intently, the silence in the house now deafening. Then it came again, a slow, deliberate scratching sound coming from the front door. It was as if someone, or something, was trying to get in. Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through me. We had locked the door, hadn't we? Mark, grabbing a poker from beside the fireplace, slowly made his way towards the door, his every step filled with trepidation. He motioned for us to stay put, his eyes warning us to remain silent. The scratching stopped. We held our breath. The silence stretched on, agonizingly long. Just as suddenly as it had stopped, the scratching resumed, more insistent this time. Mark took a deep breath and with a swift movement threw open the door. The hallway stood empty, illuminated only by the dim light from the living room. But something was different. The lock, which we distinctly remembered engaging, hung open. The door had been unlocked from the outside. Fear, thick and suffocating, filled the air. We stood there, frozen, our minds struggling to grasp what was happening. Who could have unlocked the door? The logical part of me screamed that there had to be a rational explanation, but the primal fear gripping my heart knew better. We searched the house, our fear mounting with each passing moment. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind against the house, amplified our terror. There was no sign of forced entry, no indication of who or what had unlocked the door. We huddled back together in the living room, our eyes darting nervously around the room. Suddenly a floorboard creaked above us. We froze. Someone was in the attic. Mark grabbed the poker again, his jaw set with determination. We listened, our breath caught in our throats. The silence hung heavy, punctuated only by the pounding of our hearts. Then, slowly, deliberately, footsteps began to descend the attic stairs. Mark motioned for us to stay put and crept towards the attic door. He slowly pushed it open, his eyes scanning the darkened staircase. I held my breath, my heart threatening to beat out of my chest, and then I saw him. A man, tall and shadowy, stood on the landing. He was dressed in dark clothing, a wide-brimmed hat obscuring his face. He stood motionless, staring down at Mark with an eerie stillness. There was no emotion in his eyes, no malice, no fear, just an empty, chilling gaze that sent shivers down my spine. Mark, his voice a shaky whisper, demanded to know who he was and what he was doing in our house. The man didn't answer. He simply continued to stare at Mark, his silence more terrifying than any words he could have uttered. Then, as quickly as he had appeared, the man vanished into the darkness of the attic. Mark, his face pale and drawn, rushed up the stairs, but the man was gone.